Welcome, everybody. This is part two of the Ralph Christie case. Welcome, everybody. This is part two of the Ralph Christie case. Before I get into this, I just want to talk about injustice. And I don't really know where to start, but I feel like I have to talk about it. And hopefully, people start listening. Injustice is a stain on the very word justice. We have injustice in our police stations, in our courtrooms, with stakeholders in our society, even in the quiet corners where no one's watching, on many different levels. We've seen it, we've witnessed it. Mothers wrongly imprisoned, fathers accused without evidence, young people judged not by their actions, but their postcodes, their skin, their silence, the cars they drive, the clothing they wear. And when justice fails, it just doesn't stop with failed of the accused. It also fails the people left behind, their partners who can't sleep, the communities who start losing trust in the very system meant to protect them. But we have to be honest. And here's the truth: injustice thrives in silence. It feeds on disbelief. It grows when we look away. So we must not look away. We must listen. We must believe. We must expose the cracks in the system. Not to tear it down, but to rebuild it stronger, fairer, and more humane. I mean, injustice, or justice, I should say, isn't just a courtroom word. It's a community promise, in my opinion. And when that promise is broken, it's on all of us to speak up, show up, and demand better. Let's be clear also: calling out injustice is not anti police, it's pro accountability, it's pro truth, and it's pro humanity. We should not live in fear, we should not live in silence, and we should not live in the shadows, and no more lives lost to the system. There's many cases, such as the case we're talking about today. We're actually covering a number of other cases here on Dreamcatcher Radio of injustice. It must be rectified, re-looked at. And unfortunately, the system drags its heels. Appeals happen all the time, regularly, but the court system don't like it. Judges don't like having their rulings appealed against. But one thing I've noticed in the courtroom is that when things start to go wrong, they could go very, very wrong. Good afternoon and welcome back to Dreamcatcher Radio Open Window. Today we're going to episode 2 with Ralph Christie. Last week, I don't know if you remember, we discussed this extraordinary case of which Ralph got sent to prison for 7 years. I have to admit, he looks pretty fresh now, sitting in his chair. And we're going to go into part 2 today. I just want to quickly give a little bit of high-level information. Ralph was in the property investment industry in Crete and was doing regular deals. And he went to prison for fraud for 7 years. And he's been talking about his story. And quite interestingly, we've got some documents here that we're going to go through today. One of which, what I will say, let me just go backwards one step. His own brother, was a senior police officer, and it basically was a witness against him. Ralph avers that the reason why this happened was of his name is Cedric Christie. It's due to his criminal activity himself, and this was a massive conspiracy and cover-up. His own son was also involved, in this, which we have not really gone into detail about his son and how what part he played. Now, so we're now doing this first thing in the morning. This interview is pre-recorded, so I'm going to say good morning for the sake of our listeners when they hear it. Good afternoon. The Ralph, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you. Yeah, 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 fine, no problem. I appreciate your interest, and hopefully that it's not just me. That there's many other people that have suffered in this get justice in the end.
There is many people that do suffer from injustice. To get justice after injustice, if there is such a thing, because you're never going to forget, it's very very difficult. You did say to me during the week following your last episode, you had quite a lot of people contact you because you know people that know you obviously know the case and that sort of thing, and the feedback and support you had was very good.
Yeah, the feedback and support I've had ever since the trial in Bradford has been good. Uh, the people that went against me were probably at the most 10, 11. My client base back in the day was probably 50, 60, 70 different people. Uh, so yeah, I've had excellent support, not so much from my immediate family, but certainly from people who had done business with me or were doing business with me that understood how it worked here.
Yeah. So what's extraordinary about this is you suddenly out the blue, Cedric, your brother, who was this senior police officer, decided to send you and many others on the 14th of July 2021 at 11:30 in the morning an email which is titled Sorry. Now we're just going to go through this email. So it's an extraordinary email, and even copies in fellow police officers. There's a myriad of names in here. Um, and so, you okay with me reading this out, Ralph?
Yeah, I've got no problem at all. It's a confession, isn't it? So
I'll ask for some comment as we go along. It reads, "Dear Mum and Dad, dear Carol, Cameron, and Charmaine, dear Jenny, dear Lance, Gareth, and Ralph, and your wives, partners, old and new, dear Myrtle, dear Andrew and Jill, dear David and Mike, dear cousins, nephews, nieces, and other relatives, wherever you may be, dear friends and police family members." Now, that seems to be just off the bat there. He's thought about who he's writing to this because he could have easily done dear or. He's actually this is a considered email, and also the email that he got sent from. I'm not going to read it out, but this is his usual email. That's normally where you'd get emails from him. Would that be correct?
yeah, it's correct. Yeah, he's had it for many years.
Yeah. Okay. I write to you because I want to improve my life and my standing, which is kind of an oxymoron, if you think about it logically, because of what he goes on to later say. I cannot do so effectively until I confront the past and say sorry. I realize I have been wandering lost for many years. I've been foolish in many aspects of my life. I have been blind to the obvious. This probably began. This probably began in my teenage years when I went off the rails, doing stupid adolescent. This is this is his things, including shop. He was doing shoplifting, jeez, causing damage and getting drunk. One, he's paginated this just before joining the police cadets in 1980, so he goes back a long way. I was involved in a making off without payment from a petrol station. I was with friends. I filled up the car and the driver drove away without paying. He was arrested, and his solicitor later took a statement from me in which I lied by stating I was not present and providing a loose but false alibi for the driver. I was called as a witness to Leeds Magistrates Court, by which time I had become a police cadet. I verbally substantiated my statement in the witness box. Therefore, I lied on oath. What's it, just out of interest? I mean, how old is he now? Or how old is he
63.
back? 63. So 1980, the same year as what? How? Oh, so yeah, because it'd be yeah, okay. So he's confessing to being a false witness back in 1980. Again, it gives you like some sort of thought that even that is bugging him, I guess. And he's got some crackers coming up though. Sometimes around the same time period, this is notation number two. A friend crashed my motorcycle. I falsely reported it as stolen and claimed for the damage from my insurance company. Notation number three. Whilst a serving constable, I was driving a police car in Leeds, probably around 1985 or 1986, when I was involved in an accident. That was my fault. I accepted full responsibility and then tried to diminish the blame by amending the actual circumstances. I was warned about this by my supervisor. I did not learn my lesson. On my first day, this is notation number four, on my first day as CID, 1988 stroke 1989, my tutor and I arrested a suspect who was alleged to have thrown missiles at a police car, seriously injuring a police officer. My tutor seized a jacket from the suspect's house and we went to the damaged police car. He then placed broken glass from the car on the jacket. I did protest briefly, but the deed was done. So he's like basically tampering with evidence. So, so he's trying to connect the person with the incident. I did not have the strength to confront the tutor as I knew I should have done. I should have reported him to a supervisor. In due course, I attended the trial of the suspect and gave evidence that was untrue, in that I denied any knowledge of any wrongdoing concerning the jacket and glass. The defendant was found guilty. Do you know what was really interesting about this, Ralph? Yeah, we're going to go down this. Do you know what? When minor criminals, they all start off like things like small, don't they? And it moves on to bigger things in life. This seems to be a progression like that, doesn't it? This is notation number five.
Yeah, I mean, you have to bear in mind that the whole, as regards the whole family, we always thought Cedric was whiter than white, and for decades, never once did we think that he was a criminal. So he's bullied and frightened my children, probably his own children, it's probably his own ex-wife, and I certainly bullied my ex-wife. And we were just thinking there was this straight, honest guy that was kind of policing the family to keep us on the straight and narrow. so,
Yeah,
so it's quite laughable, really, when you think about how he was helping me and my ex-wife for 5 years, up until we got exonerated here, and then he suddenly turned turtle. And the only reason I think that he did turn turtle was because he realised that we were not guilty here. If he didn't get something on, if he didn't keep the case going in the UK, he would be ending up going to prison himself. So yeah, it's probably the crime. He's become more and more of a criminal the longer he's been in the police force,
that's a
and
very good
even
point.
since.
That's a very good point you just made there. Is that he's just confessed there that he lied under peer pressure, and what your proposition is, which you discussed last week on the first episode, was that you got tried in Crete for the very same crime, and then basically there was there's no conviction, and then
Yeah.
you believe that the reason why it got taken to the UK is because of peer pressure his end to cover up
Yes.
for his crimes.
Uh, well, they obviously started investigating him in 2008, which I knew nothing about, at least until probably April 2010. And of course, that in between, the police had got involved with thinking that I was doing unlawful deals over here or money laundering. I was even accused of being a terrorist at one point. So it's it's all quite laughable how he's done this confession. It's obviously been a career criminal. It started with him, and at the end of the day, he's managed to get keep himself free and send me down for 7 years.
Okay, let's carry on with paragraph number 5. In 1990 or 1991, I was with a detective sergeant when we detained a man in connection with a murder. The colleague suggested that the man had made a significant comment, but this was not true. In due course, I made a statement regarding the alleged comment that was untrue. A murder investigation. Geez. 6. In the early 1990s, I saw a stolen car in Leeds that had been involved in a burglary. I identified the driver as being suspected burglar I knew. I was not sure that he was the driver of the vehicle. I recall encouraging another police officer to try and get a civilian witness to make a positive ID of the car, of the driver. The officer did not do so. Ultimately, I did attend court and give evidence stating that I was sure the person I knew was driving the vehicle. This was not true. He was found guilty. Notation number 7. In Hyde Park area of Leeds, a colleague hit a detainee in the face. I was a sergeant and the supervisor of the colleague. I did nothing about this. The detainee was not injured. Notation number 8. Following the arrest of the suspects for a burglary nearby, I took the shoes of one of the suspects to the scene of the crime and put them on. No way. Jeez. I trod around in the garden and then requested the Socco examine the marks. In due course, I believe the shoes were submitted for forensic examination. There was no criminal proceedings in this case. Can you believe it? That's like proper setup, that is, isn't it? Number 9,
Yeah,
1997
yeah.
or 1998. A colleague had already detained a suspect when I attended. The colleague showed me a screwdriver and suggested to me that I plant it on the suspect. I was a sergeant, he was a constable. I refused the offer, but I did not confront the misconduct of the constable in the correct manner. Number 10, 1998 or 1999, a colleague and I approached two drug dealers in Hare Hills, Leeds, and recovered drugs in their possession. The colleague then found more drugs in a cigarette packet on the adjacent grounds. At the police station, we made notes to state that we had both seen the cigarette packet in the hand of one of the suspects. This was not true. Whilst the colleague initiated the lie, I was the supervising sergeant and I should not have acquiesced. In due course, I made a false statement which was substantiated in oral evidence at Leeds Crown Court. Both defendants were found guilty. Serious, isn't it? Number 11. In 2004, I was a newly promoted detective inspector at Wheatwood. There were several overnight rape investigations to allocate, but these were insufficient detectives. There were insufficient detectives. I initially forgot about the report, on my desk due to other work. I recall speaking to the victim, I think the same day or next day. I filed the report as undetected. I now cannot believe I did this without conducting a thorough investigation. I failed in my professional duty. That's outrageous, isn't it?
Well, it is, yeah, and of course, there was no. I don't think there's been any convictions yet in Leeds as regards the grooming gangs, and I would suspect that he's turned a blind eye to those crimes as well over the years.
Number 12. I stole an axe from police property in or around 1991 or 1992 to prevent it being returned to a suspected aggravated burglar. I stole a CS gas canister from the police store in the mid 1990s. I stole a toolbox from ECU officers in or around 2007. So you can see that what was on the whole a successful 30-year career, I let myself down on many occasions. Not only did I let myself down, I let my colleagues down and the wider community. In some of the above circumstances, I actually thought I was doing the right thing by ensuring that people I believed were offenders face justice. That's so skewed, that is, isn't it? The whole
Well, yeah, I mean, you could actually say that he planted all this stuff to get me convicted, and he honestly believed that I was a criminal, so should go down. I mean, it's
yeah, but
you know,
he's acting like judge and jury as well, isn't he? I
well,
now
exactly.
yeah, I now realise that it was foolish of me. Foolish, that's an understatement. Um, there can be no excuses for lying, whatever the circumstances. The consequences can be and often are very serious. They were for some of the victims of my improper conduct to bear false witness in Her Majesty's courtroom under oath on the Bible is particularly grave, and you may result in very serious sanctions. May, really? Like May? That should be a given.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's he should have been arrested immediately for that. I mean, I think he has got. There's no doubt about it. He's had police burnout, and he has got mental health issues. And okay, for what I've been through and all the rest of it, you would think I would be, gunning after him. I want justice in this because I have had a miscarriage of justice, but I wouldn't have actually gone to prison if it wasn't for the role that my son played with him in April 2014 here, changing my defence witnesses, some that were used at the Greek trial, into prosecution witnesses. So for him to do this confession and, you, you know, I think he's had to get it off his chest, and fair play to him for doing it. But the authorities, certainly in the UK, need to find a way of correctly dealing with this.
Yeah, we'll go on to that soon because I've got some questions on that, having read this. Now, I conveniently forgot about these earlier indiscretions. How can you describe as indiscretions? When I became a police and crime commissioner in 2012, when I'm reading this as it's written, hypocritically stood on anti-corruption message. There are a number of reasons I'm sending you this email now, so long after the events. You got any comments on that?
Well, there again, when he stood as the crime commissioner, he did very, very well. I think he got for like 47% of the vote in the runoff with the other guy, Mark Burns Williams, who was meant to win by a landslide because Cedric only threw his hat into the ring about 4 weeks before. And his campaign manager was Mr. Neil Wilby, who's a big justice campaigner, written many factual details about my case, probably one of the best in Europe now for what he does. So he's highly respected, and he was his campaign manager. So for Cedric to do this confession and for him to read that he was backing Cedric to be an anti-corruption campaigner is obviously that he affected him as well.
Yeah, just for the point of reference for listeners, if people want to see Neil Wilby's work, it's Neil Wilby. That's NeilWilby.com. You can find out more on there. However, the bottom line is that I failed. I was weak and I let everyone down, including all of you, my family. See, the thing is as well, one would think, he's got these vivid-ish memories of some of his activities and tactics that he's employed to get people convicted. Yeah, you wouldn't, it wouldn't be far stretched the imagination to say this was regular practice for him and indeed others.
Well, yeah, it is West Yorkshire Police. I would say it's probably one of the most corrupt in the country. I'm not just saying that because of what's happened to me, but you go down the long list of the Yorkshire Ripper. There's the Jimmy Savile. There's the Colin Norris, who's a nurse that's locked up in Durham still for crimes he obviously didn't commit. George Oldfield put that woman in prison for apparently doing the IRA bombings on the M62. She was acquitted. So there's no doubt about it. It is a shocking police force, and Cedric's been he's got doctrined into their corruption. And I think the higher you go up in the police force, the more you see, and the more you have to cover up. I mean, I feel sorry for the however many 30,000 police officers in West Yorkshire. The lower ranks, I feel very sorry for them because they're actually joining a criminal organisation.
Yeah. Just a point of clarification, when you mentioned Jimmy Savile, obviously nobody can. What you're mentioning there is that they covered up his conduct of what he was doing because it's prolific what went on there with Jimmy Savile. Um, okay, I'm sorry. The words and actions of most, if not all, of you have helped me to realize the mistakes I have made. Ralph has had the greatest impact to set me on the straight and narrow. I should have come to terms with my situation much earlier. I take responsibility and am prepared to face the consequences of my stupidity and move on with my life. Those of you with whom I have had strained relationships with recently, this is my fault. Again, I apologize. My final words go to Carol, Cameron, and Charmaine. I'm ashamed and embarrassed by my conduct. This includes my foolishness in private life. I did not honor and respect a fantastic wife and mother. I was not a good role model for Cameron and Charmaine. I will endeavor to be a better father in the future. Cameron and Charmaine, you are both fortunate to have such a wonderful, loving, strong, and principled mother. She has my total respect. I love you all very much. You are both brilliant, and I am very proud to be your father. Once again, I unequivocally say sorry. I let the whole family down, including those who are not here today. Obviously, that includes my mum and dad, which is particularly shameful. So he wrote this letter post your mum and dad passing. Email, sorry. They taught me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry. Go on, sorry, Ralph.
I'm just saying they died over. They died over 20 years ago. So, uh, but at least it's included them. So, but there's obviously, I don't want to label mental health issues or something like that, but he's obviously been in a very, very difficult position. And he's talking about Charmian is his daughter and Cameron's his son. Well, I always had a very good relationship with both of them, and Cameron actually works with Declan now. So if you're coming back to what happened in 2014, Cedric was obviously in a desperate state to get something on me so that all his crimes wouldn't come out. And North Yorkshire Police were actually investigating Cameron and Cedric's Declan's business in in North Yorkshire at the time for credit card fraud. This is October 2013, just after Jane and I were fully exonerated in Crete. So Declan and Cameron are well aware that Cedric had mental health problems. Obviously, the police found that out in April 2009 when he was diagnosed with obsessive behaviour syndrome, police burnout, suicidal. So, in some ways, those two are as much to blame, or if not more to blame, because they've used Cedric, mental health issues, to actually go after me. Now, fortunately, people might disagree, but I've been through all this, and I still feel quite level-headed about it, and I think I've got all my faculties. In fact, in some ways, it's made me probably a bit stronger and a bit better. But the serious, as I said last week, one could not have done it without the other. So, who you point the blame at, I would put it more at Declan, because there's absolutely nothing wrong with him as an individual, and he was fully aware of all the problems that Cedric was having, and his stepmother Jane was having, and I was having. So if you get, there's more than one person to be blamed for this. This is why Cedric might be question, because as far as I know, Cedric and Declan fell out in February 2017 when I was still in prison, and they've hardly spoken since. So
I just want to take you back to this paragraph here, because you referred to it as a confession in terms of yourself. Ralph has had the greatest impact to set me on the straight and narrow. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's just a sentence that's kind of in there amongst everything. It's got no relation to what he's actually done to me by putting me in prison. Uh, I did meet Cedric in, I think it was January 2020, where he offered to help me pay for my appeal. Um, and then again in 2021. And we had our heated moments. We went out for a few meals and what have you. And Gita was at the meetings, and another good friend of ours, Joan Boonier here. And so the last time I saw him, I think, was about May 2021. And this confession's come out 2 months after that. So whether he's included that sentence in because of what happened then, I don't know. But it's certainly just one sentence, isn't it? When he should have said, he should have included what he did to me. Because bear in mind, the CPS and the West Yorkshire Police based all of the extra 18 counts on Cedric and Declan's private investigations in April 2014.
Yeah, there's over probably 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 21, 23, 24, 22. So he copied in the CPS as well. There's got to be over 35 email addresses in here. He's also copied in the National Crime Agency, and Ministry of Justice, fraud, all these people. And to your knowledge, have anybody acted upon this?
No. To my knowledge, no, nobody. Neil Wilby has done 2 or 3 articles about it. Some of Cedric's victims and Declan's victims have put comments in about which includes comments from Declan's stepdad, Peter Raystrick, Charles Sanakis, my architect here, Jeff Brown, who's been one of the biggest supporters. People that know. I certainly didn't come to Crete and become a criminal. I'd have been a criminal in Bradford 20 years ago. So it's just all become fabricated nonsense from an investigation that started in 2008 into my own brother.
Okay, let's play. Can you introduce your first song? My plan is in the next half is talk about the trial that you had here in the UK, and then we'll move on from there.
Yeah, it's Simon and Garfunkel, Got to Keep the Customers Satisfied, which is a song that I've been playing in my cars since the late 1970s, ever since I've been in business, which has always been the ethos of my of any businesses I've run.
Okay, let's play that now.
Gee, but it's great to be back home. Home is where I want to be. I've been on the road so long, my friend. And if you came along, I know you couldn't disagree. It's the same old story, yeah. Everywhere I go, I get slandered, libel. I hear words I never heard in the Bible. And I'm one step ahead of the shoe shine, 2 steps away from the county line, just trying to keep my customers satisfied. Deputy Sheriff said to me, tell me what you come here for, boy. You better get your bags and flee. You're in trouble, boy, and now you're heading into war. It's the same old story. Everywhere I go, I get slandered, libel. I hear words I never heard in the Bible. And I'm one step ahead of the shoe shine, 2 steps away from the county line, just trying to keep my customers satisfied.
So that was got to keep the customer satisfied. Now, Ralph, I just want to go backwards. Having read that email where he makes all these confessions, and like I say, I wouldn't put it too much beyond imagination that there's many, many more, and this is just a tap in the water, so to speak. Who knows? But one thing you do know that nothing's been done in relation to those emails, to the best of your knowledge, or email, I should say, because that there's potentially, if he's touched a case, they need to be looked at, I would imagine. Because there could be many more victims. Now I want to go backwards to, because I think I recall, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, is that you got invited for an interview. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was in July 2009 with D.I. Taylor and DC Battle.
Right. I just want to go through the chronology from there, and basically what happened pre-court, what sort of counsel did you get, and then how did you feel about that, the legal assistance you got, and when you saw the witnesses that are going against you, your thoughts and feelings. I'll just leave that at the moment, then we'll go on to there. So basically, from that interview, you didn't have a solicitor there with you, did you? You just went alone, you said?
No.
Right. And did they tell you what they wanted to interview about?
Yeah, they were following up the allegations from Stephen Thomas. I think at that point he was trying to make out I had embezzled €2 million off him. It was greatly reduced by the time we got to the Greek trial. But they were obviously believing everything that the lady that worked for us called Sue Watt and Michael and Kimberly Thompson, who were working for us as well over here and doing some other jobs for us. And Stephen Thomas had told these officers just before I went in for my chat. So, it was all pretty straightforward. I just thought I'd tell them the truth of what actually went on and what businesses we were doing. And I just thought that would be the end of it.
Right. So what happened then?
Well, I went off to Australia because I was tying up a deal with the Ministry of Oman that had an office on the Gold Coast, which was for a lot of money. And I was there for 3 weeks. I was just waiting for one piece of paper to come from Greece, which we're always waiting for one piece of paper to come from Greece, but it never came. And then by the time I came back from Australia, back to Crete, DC Skidmore and D.I. Taylor had sent out an email to all my clients, friends, investors, even family members, that they were investigating me for running Ponzi schemes and defrauding people in Crete.
And who gave them all these contact details in the end?
Well, they got that from Stephen Thomas and Sue Watt, because they had them all because we were all working together for a couple of years here.
Yeah. Okay. So he was the one that made the first complaint?
I think it's actually I think Sue Watt thought she discovered a property we called St. George's Retreat. She kind of thought she discovered that I was committing fraud against Stephen Thomas on that particular deal when I wasn't. But bear in mind, this lady's never bought a blade of grass in Crete, and she wouldn't understand how the contracts worked or anything like that. Her sole job was to get us EU funding for Blackheath Palace development. But she was involved in other stuff, and she suddenly thought that I was ripping off Stephen Thomas, which I wasn't. So maybe she instigated it. And also, of course, when Cedric was being investigated at this time, and Cedric had confided in Glenn Acornley, his long-term police friend that I knew as well, in April 2009 on doctor's advice. So,
So let's talk about, because you mentioned Stephen Thomas in episode number 1, but we didn't really talk about him in much detail because we were trying to deal with the high level thing. So Stephen Thomas, how did you meet up with him in the initial? How did your relationship start?
I met up with him about April 2006. I'd been a good friend of his brother, Simon Thomas, who was the managing director of Wessex Carpets. I bought a lot. I was a retailer. He was a manufacturer. bought lots and lots of carpets from Westex, sold to, probably one of their biggest customers in the area. And we had a very good friendship. He came to my wedding. We've had holidays together, and he got involved in Crete probably about 2003 for his first apartment. But then he introduced me to Stephen Thomas in April 2006, who was going through a very difficult divorce. The family Simon and Stephen had been left 7 million by their late father, Brian Thomas, as a gift. He died, I think, in November 2007. So there was an awful lot of inheritance tax to pay on the gift. Like, I think it was probably like 40%. He hadn't informed his wife, who was divorcing at the time, about this gift, and tried to hide that from her, because she would have been entitled to half of it. And so I think Simon thought it would be very clever if Stephen invested some money with me in Crete, some other money in Crete in other projects, and also put a lot into the Bank of Cyprus here as well, so it would never be traced.
What sort of money? What sort of money are you talking about? How much?
Stephen's share of the 7 million was 3.5. He invested with me as a business partner 1.2 million of that. He did another investment here himself with Simon that I wasn't involved with, and also I managed to sort out some bank accounts for him with the Bank of Cyprus and Pancreti Bank, where he could get high interest rates on some of the other money. Lo and behold, in 2000 and let's say early 2009, his ex-wife Jane Thomas found out about this 3.5. The father had died, so 40% of it was to go in tax. Ex-wife entitled to half of it, and given me 1.2 million. So those three figures together come to more than the gift that he was given from his father.
How does that work, though?
Well, 40% of the 3.5 inheritance tax.
I just had the math in my head, but how does that work? Yeah, how did he achieve to do that?
Well, obviously, 40% in inheritance tax. His wife's entitled to 50% because they were still married when the gift was given by the father. So that's 1.7 million of it, and had given me 1.2 million, which was proven in the courts here, all legal. And those three figures together come to more than 3.5. So he was basically bankrupted himself.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
On the gift.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. So, but if you're, just get my head around that then, just out of interest. But if you make yourself bankrupt by dispersing all those monies, when you go bankrupt, you have to declare assets elsewhere.
Yeah, he didn't physically go bankrupt because he wasn't really a company, and obviously the family had other money besides this. They were quite a wealthy family. What I'm saying is the gift of the father that was obviously given in good faith to the sons of 3.5 million each in 2006 turned into a bit of a nightmare because the father died in November 2007, causing the 40% tax to the Inland Revenue. His ex-wife found out about the gift and said she was entitled to half of it, and of course he'd hidden it, or whatever you want to say, 1.2 million of it in partnerships with me in Crete.
Yeah. Just out of interest, why do you use the word gift?
Because obviously if the father had lived another 7 years, there wouldn't have been an inheritance tax on death duty.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Just interesting word, and you use that. The okay. So you set up a deal. He gives you 1.2 million. Is that for Pacific schemes or just to hold the money or whatever?
No, yeah, Pacific scheme. Well, he had shares in the company we're on, AE, for a period of time, and then the Inland Revenue said that he couldn't because of some issues in the UK. So I had to buy him out in February 2009 for 250,000 out of the company. But the other money, he still owns 4 houses in Almerida, which is a village near where we are at the moment. He put money into a property called Kira, which was all evidence in the Greek trial. So he never actually lost any money with me, which is why we got not guilty. But he was the instigator behind West Yorkshire Police doing what they did in July 2009 onwards.
So so in hindsight, then, do you know why Stephen Thomas went to the police?
Yeah, I think we touched on that last week because Cedric was told by the doctor when he was suspended by Sir Norman Bettison, who was the chief constable at the time in April 2009. The doctor advised Cedric to confide in somebody about what he was going through, and he confided in his best friend at the time, Glenn Acornley, who was a retired DC, never really made it up the ranks, I don't think. And but of course, he was playing golf at the same golf club as Stephen Thomas and Stephen Thomas's criminal lawyer, Alistair Bateman, who was married to a CPS lawyer called, or still is, Susan Hoy. So this is kind of how I think it all kind of started, with tittle tattle at a golf club about Cedric being a criminal.
Yeah, and so from there, then you go for this interview. And at that point, when you found out Stephen Thomas was the person making these allegations, was your relationship broken down pre that, or what happened post that? How did
it'd been in Crete in May 2009, and we've done lots of deals together, and it had successful returns, so there was no real issues. I think he just comes back to this contract which I mentioned earlier about St George's Retreat. Obviously, he'd spent a day with Sue Watt. They went down south to look at a project called Manford Hill that day, and they came back to our house and were having a chat. And I think Stephen Thomas was due to go to the airport that night. I was going to take him with his son, and he just said to me in the car driving to the airport, "If you're ripping me off, Ralph, just tell me now. We'll find a way through it." And I'm thinking, well, what was making you say that? I'm not ripping you off or anything like that. Anyway, I took him to the airport, and that was I thought that was the end of it. And then another weeks later, I've been summoned to go in front of his lawyer in Hanya to explain that I had ripped him off. So he could have only got this information through Sue Watt and from Glenn Acornley at this point. And that's when our relationship with Stephen Thomas, as much as I tried to find a way around it, he'd made his mind up I was embezzling him, and went to the police, knew a lot of people at the golf club, had contacts with the CPS, knew some judges, high legal people in Bradford, and Cedric, of course, was still being investigated at the same time. So it all kind of got out of control, and we ended up where we did.
But but he was still in business up to including that point.
Yeah,
and then but would he not see copies of the book, so to speak? Like, could look where all his money.
It's not quite. We weren't really. I mean, Veron was a corporate company, and yes, that did have books, and he did have shares in that, and he did sell his shares in that. As regards, he did a land deal called what we call Care of Valley Gardens, which was always his deal. He set it up, and Mario Churchioni, who became a prosecution witness in the UK, paid into that. So there was a paper trail with that. So there was evidence of all this, and it was proven in the court. So everything he stated, whether he got it from Glenn Acornley or whether he got it from Sue Watt, was factually untrue.
Right. Okay. And then, okay, fine. So let's go on from there. So these emails went round to pretty much everybody that was on your email list. What happened next?
Obviously, it creates quite a bit of interest. Some people found it quite amusing. Some people were a bit concerned. We managed to. At this time, we were still generating capital to float on the UK plus market. And as I mentioned last week, Benedict Clark was a guy that put up 500,000 to do this with a legal signed contract that was dated September the 24th, 2009. And we were all pushing ahead to do this. Benedict Clark was convinced at some stage between the 24th of September and the 3rd of October that basically a guy called John Jessup and myself had stolen at least 300,000 of this money, and going on the plus market would never exist. Well, we'd already paid out this sort of money, which was evidence at Bradford Crown Court, to a guy called Darren Brown, who was going to be the chairman of the UK company. But DC Skidmore and D.I. Taylor had convinced Benedict Clark that I'd taken this money and was probably just going to run off with it, and nothing existed. And of course, Benedict Clark kind of hit the roof, demanded his money back. Well, we couldn't because it was all program marked. And that's so that middle of October 2009, my wife's arrested, I'm arrested, and John Jessup is arrested, and we're all interviewed that month in Halifax.
And who is John Jessup?
John Jessup was a long-term friend of mine. I played much football with him over the years. I've done a lot of carpets, his houses, he's ran buy-to-lets, and he just ended up working for Stephen Thomas and me around, let's say, December 2008, right the way up to the trouble starting in October 2009 when the bank accounts were all frozen.
Right. We discussed the bank accounts in the earlier episode, so we don't need to go over that again. So, when you got indicted, then, was it just you?
No, it was Jane, my ex-wife, John Jessup, and me.
Right.
All three of us.
Okay. So, did you all have separate counsel?
No, Jane and I at that time were using Michael O'Gara in Leeds, and so was John Jessup at that time. In fact, John Jessup used Michael O'Gara at the trial in Bradford in 2015 and was fully exonerated. I was advised by Cedric in October or maybe a bit later than that, sometime in 2010, not to use Michael O'Gara because he was connected to criminals that Cedric had locked up, and told me to move, which of course, being my brother and him saying that, I did.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. It's like pot boiling the kettle black, isn't it?
Yeah.
And sometimes those sort of aggressive sort of defense counsels put in a lot more effort than other ones anyway. Because they know their client very well and stuff like that. But
yeah,
so yeah. See, that just this begs the question again, though, right? Where Cedric giving you that advice, giving you that advice, you kind of think, really, what sort of delusional world do you live in? Knowing, I mean, I'm guessing what he had the benefit of, if he was trying to do you a favor, is the level of criminality within the police themselves. So I mean, in some respects, obviously he didn't do you any favors, but he's part of this massive feast of what's gone wrong. So your wife in this business, I know you're divorced now. Your wife in this business, what was her role?
She just had 3% of the company. We had to have 3 board members, so she was one. I was the other and the chairman, and Stephen was the other as the vice chairman. And then we had Sue Watt as the secretary. So she didn't play any role in the business other than it was just the right thing to do to have her on the board.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So fill a slot, basically.
Yeah.
All right. So you then start getting disclosure from the police. You meet your new barrister or solicitors or legal counsel. What do they tell you?
Well, okay, so we've all been arrested and we're all charged. I'm trying to do a deal with Benedict Clark, who's a lifetime friend of mine, and he actually met me in Athens on the 15th of December 2009, where I was going to give him some land for a hotel site that was valued at around 650,000 by his own valuers, Colliers, UK. And we're about to sign this land over to him. Lo and behold, Benedict Clark gets a phone call from DC Skidmore saying that if he completes this deal with Ralph Christie, he could be done for money laundering or accepting proceeds of crime. So Benedict Clark pulled out. How DC Skidmore knew I was meeting Benedict Clark in Athens to sign this over, I don't know.
Right. Okay, so he's out the equation now. And so what happens next?
Because I have this land available, I then go back to Howard Tennant, who's the company that did get the conviction of 1 million against me for the 7 years in 2015. And I said, look, I've got some land here. I tried to give it to Benedict Clark, but the police have said they can't have it because of money laundering. Would you like me to give it to Howard Tennant? And they said, yeah, okay, we'll take it. They sent the CEO down in a private jet. The actual land went into his name because they'd taken the 1 million out of the company Howard Tennant through a Queen's Bench order that they'd issued against me, which we settled. And then, so he came down and took the land, and that was the end of the matter, with, as far as I was concerned, with Howard Tennant. And I was just dealing with Peter Morris, who said that, well, okay, when all your problems are over, we'll find a way of doing something with the land, and we'll keep working with you. I know it's very, very hard to grasp about what's going on, but this was in January 2031. Well, Howard Tennant then, 5 years later, even though the CEO, Peter Morris, had been happy, managed to hoodwink Pat Brownette, who was the building director, to make out that I was a criminal after he had conversations with Cedric personally in May 2014.
Mm. So he took advantage of a bad situation, by the sounds of it.
Yeah. I mean, there was no Pat Brownette had actually retired from the company in May 2014, so there was no need for him to really get involved at all. But Cedric just rang him up and met him in Harrogate and started saying Ralph had all his money out of Zachros in November 2008, which was just a downright lie, because I've got a contract here at the side of me where there's 1 million still in Zachros in May 2009. So, you know, this is where Cedric had twisted the whole thing after he'd been here with my son in April 2014. But anyway, coming back to what went on, every 6 months, the police kept bailing John Jessup, my ex-wife, and me, you know, so we were meant to go back to the police in March 2010. They said, no, don't bother. Come back in November 2010. And then they said May 2011 and what have you. So they kept bailing it. And so nothing was happening because they couldn't find any evidence, and there wasn't any evidence.
Were you allowed to leave the country?
Well, yeah. Well, I was living in I was in my family home, and my businesses were in Greece. So under human rights laws, they had to let me.
Just before, how was your thought? What are you going to say then? I just got one question about what you just mentioned about you've got $1 million quid in that development. Yeah, is that in capital? Or is that just land appreciation?
It's in capital.
So
it's in capital. This is dated. The contract's dated here May 2009. Cedric told Pat Brownette in May 2014, when he met him in Harrogate, that Ralph had all his money out of Zachros in November 2008. The only people that were paid back in November 2008 was 107,000 sterling that we spoke about last week that Cedric had, and another guy called Darren Brown, who was going to be the chairman on the Plus Market. He had 130,000 sterling back. Mario Churchione had quite a lot of money back, and Jeff Brown had part of his money back. But the bulk of the money that was left in there then just belonged to Stephen Thomas and me.
Yeah.
But this is just a downright lie of Cedric to Pat Brownette to make him go prosecution witness.
Yeah. I interrupted you slightly, only just to get those couple of questions in. Do you remember what you were going to say?
Okay, well, we've been repeatedly bailed, and this is when I made a request to West Yorkshire Police. Look, this is ridiculous. I've got my businesses going on in Crete. I want to get back there. I haven't committed any crime. And I sent a 3-page letter to DC Skidmore demanding a meeting. So we did have that meeting in, I think it was December the 2nd, 2010 at Halifax Police Station, where Cedric drove me to it. And Cedric requested if he could come in on the interview with me. And of course, bear in mind, Cedric was in.
Oh, my days. He actually came into that meeting.
Well, he came to the police station, and like DC Skidmore was calling Cedric boss because he was their boss back in the day. D.I. Taylor's there, and they were partners. Said, no, look, it would be inappropriate because we are interviewing Ralph under caution still. So Cedric waited outside the police station for 3 hours. He actually told me not to go in unrepresented, but I just needed to get back on with doing my businesses, and I wanted to. So I showed them all the evidence of the company, what we owned, what was paid for, and everything like that. And that didn't hear anything again from them. And then lo and behold, come March 2011, I'm arrested in Crete for the first time based on a letter that Keir Starmer had sent to the Greeks from London CPS about. And I've got a copy of the letter here, 73 articles, total untruths about John Jessup, Jane, my ex-wife, even 3 about Cedric, and then the rest about me, of total lies.
Just pause there. I just want to go back to that interview then. Cedric, right, who's the governor, basically, all right?
Yeah.
He's
Yeah,
sitting outside waiting for you. What, as your brother?
yeah.
Right.
He took me there and waited outside, and I was in a 3-hour interview.
All right.
He advised me not to go ahead with it because they wouldn't let him in.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, even that situation that causes a lot of problems in itself, doesn't it? Because what happens with later on with Cedric down the line as well. The and I want I hate to think about it, but based on what Cedric's confession is and just the general and I personally believe if those confessions are true, there's bound to be more. The it's beyond the conflict of interest. This is so prejudicial. It's not even funny.
Well, yeah, and bear in mind, DI Stephen Taylor, Cedric's retired. Cedric was still suspended at this stage as well. He hadn't retired. He didn't retire until June 2011. So, and DI Taylor who was interviewing me, had been investigating Cedric since October 2008. But I didn't realise that at that time. So you couldn't. It couldn't have happened because Cedric knew he was being investigated. He can't come into an interview with me because D.I. Taylor effectively is investigating separately two brothers.
It's a mockery, isn't it?
Absolute, yeah.
So, what did my old mucker Keir Starmer say then? If you've got the letter there,
Well,
I'm guessing that's when he was the head of the TPS, right?
Yeah. And there's much communication between Keir Starmer and Cedric and Andrew West, who was the chief prosecutor at the time, which I've seen none of it other than what Cedric sent him. So this letter's full of lies. Now, I don't get to see this letter, I don't think, until about May 2012. But suddenly I've got the Greek police at my house wanting to arrest me and my wife and John Jessup. Because now this letter has turned the simple civil case with Stephen Thomas for 1.2 million into now crimes against the Republic of Greece committed by all three of us, money laundering, theft, fraud, so, and it's all down to a CPS letter. So there was no criminal case whatsoever in Greece. But when they got Keir Starmer's letter, they had to then act on it because of the depth of what it was stated in it. But it's total lies. So go now to February 2013. I'm arrested and remanded for the trial it's heard in October 2013.
Before you get to that, I don't want to abandon the issue of the Keir Starmer thing. Who did he actually write to?
He wrote to. He just says, I have the honour of representing the assistance under the provision of the European Convention on Human Rights Assistance in Criminal Matters, in obtaining certain information, statements and documents in relation to a criminal investigation being conducted by the officers of West Yorkshire Police Economic Crime Department based in the city of Leeds. I am the director, the head of the Crown Prosecution Service of England and Wales. As a Crown Prosecutor designated, I have the powers to conduct proceedings in this matter, and I will designate as a judicial authority under Article 24 of the Convention. I will empower Mr. David Levy, who is a CPS officer, to act on my behalf. So this went to the judicial authorities of Greece.
Right. Did it make any specific requests, or is it just providing information?
Oh, it's got lots and lots of requests. I'll email you a copy of that. It's got, this is after my bank accounts have been frozen.
Yeah. But in any case, this is what instigated the Greeks getting involved.
Yeah. Legal definitions that Starmer wrote about: conspiracy to defraud, money laundering, summary of the facts about how they got to this. And of course, the Greeks get a letter like that, they've got to act. Even though I was the chairman of a corporate company here, I passed a proper persons test to get the Greek corporate company in 2008, which Sue Watt helped me do, because you couldn't just open a corporate company. They had to do full testing. So I was whiter than white in the UK.
Yeah, but you could argue you're white and white at that stage, or you could say that, though, couldn't you? Things could change, though, couldn't it? He,
Well, of course,
I get what you're
yeah.
saying. Yeah, I
Yeah.
get what you're saying. All right, go on, carry on then from there.
So, like I said, this letter then this stopped everything in the UK happening, because what they wanted to do, because I'd had this meeting with Skidmore and Taylor that said it was not allowed to, they realised they started something that they couldn't really stop. So they came up with this, whoever came up with this letter, to send this letter to criminalise me in Greece. So hopefully I would get 20 years here and never then have a trial in the UK.
Mm. All right.
And
So
that's what they succeeded in doing.
the Greek trial went ahead. Do you understand the local language and that sort of stuff?
Well, you asked me that last week. No, my Greek is very poor, considering it's how long I've been here and what have you, but leave that on one side for the minute. But I was well represented by Dr. Themis Sophos, who's a top Athens lawyer. You know, he did a thorough investigation to it. He worked with the Athens Economic Crime Unit, and you know, I got not guilty. There's a list. I've got a list here again of the prosecution witnesses that were here, that were used in Crete. I've got a letter from Dr. Themis Sophos to Cedric, who was dated the 17th of September 2013. Hi, Cedric. Yesterday I spoke to Benedict Clark. So this is my lawyer in Athens speaking to Benedict Clark, who is the guy that started the original €300,000 so-called theft, based on what D.I. Taylor and D.C. Skidmore told him early October 2009. So Cedric's part of the Greek trial. Benedict Clark is part of the Greek trial. You've got Alan Thompson, who was a prosecution witness. Dr. Themis Sophos. I spoke to Benedict Clark. I spoke to Alan Thompson. I spoke to Charles Zanakis. All these people. I spoke to Pat Brownette. All these people were defence witnesses in the Greek trial.
So they were physically there in your defence?
Yeah, on the whole list of it. Cedric was a defence witness. He's listed as number 10. Alan Thompson, number 3. Pat Brownette, number 8.
What about Stephen Thomas? Was he mentioned in this?
Well, he was the prosecution.
Okay, he was the prosecution. Okay,
Stephen Thomas and Sue Watt were the prosecution. They were the only two, but they never turned up at the trial. You know, Sue Watt wrote a letter to the judge saying she couldn't turn up at the trial because apparently, I don't know if it was I or somebody had arranged for them to be attacked at the place of where they were staying the night before. It's a complete pack of lies. They wouldn't even know where they were staying.
So did the prosecution then say we've got no evidence to put forward, or did they actually put through evidence?
They what they tried to do was get the trial adjourned so it wouldn't be heard for another 6 months. But bear in mind, I'd been in prison for 8 months. So the prosecution were having none of that. They said, look, we've got this guy in prison. You know, we need to get on with this trial. We'll give you another 2 weeks to get to come over and do it. And so the prosecution witnesses never even turned up because they knew it was all based on a pack of lies. This is a letter here to the public prosecutor dated the 10th of October 2013, signed by Sue Watt, where she's saying, I would like to apologise for my non-attendance of court on Friday the 27th of September. This is no way to offend the Greek judicial system or mean of any disrespect to the judges in attendance. My whole involvement in this case has been to uphold the judicial Greek system and prevent continual abuse by various individuals. She then goes out to make out that they were attacked, which is a complete pack of lies. Because, you know, I wouldn't even know, there's no reason to attack anybody in this at all.
Was there a police report about the attack?
Well, she had a contact. I mean, did Sue Watt, and this is how I think Keir Starmer got involved. Her husband's an ex-Marine and an ex-copper, and she does write in one saying, "I hope that nobody ever finds out how I've got this information about or this person to help me." So I don't know where that came from, but that's in writing she's done herself. But what she did was she got in touch with the British Embassy in Athens, and she's trying to make out the British Embassy told her to flee if she was worried for her safety of her life. Well, there's no crime here. There's no violence here at all, you know.
Oh, the other thing as well, there's, for cases like this, they can put in special measures easily. So it's common in the UK for domestic violence and non-molestation orders, all that sort of stuff. If people fear, because the court system want witnesses, so she could have done it via video conference, anything.
Yeah, Yeah, she says here, prior to the incident, 12:30 after midnight, in the early hours of the 27th of September, we had to telephone the British Embassy and told them of our concerns. We were told that we should protect ourselves and that if our fear was so bad that we had to make our own decision to leave. The embassy did suggest we phone the local police, but we said that we did not speak Greek and that if we stayed in the villa any longer, we'd fear for our lives. The embassy said that they would email the British consulate in Iraq and have them contact us the same following morning. Well, it's just a complete pack of lies because nobody knew where they were staying. I don't think people are going to start throwing stuff at windows and shouting outside a house and what she was actually saying. So she used the British embassy rather than the local police. If I've ever had to call the police here, they've always been very efficient, So it's just complete lies.
Okay, let's pause there, Ralph. We're going to go to next interval. Sorry. Would you like to introduce your next song?
Yeah, this is the song by Keane, Somewhere Only We Knew, which I think came out in 2004. And it was a very close song of mine and my son Declan as we were growing up and going around the world with his squash and enjoying our lives together in Crete. So it's got a lot of meaning as this song because it was one that me and Declan really enjoyed.
Okay, let's play that now.
I'm somewhere only we know.
So that was Somewhere Only We Know by Keane. Now, Ralph, we had a short break there. Where were we up to? We were on about God.
Yeah, we were comparing the
The witnesses and
defense.
prosecution,
Yeah.
and basically the case got dismissed here in Crete, and this obviously upset people in the UK.
Well, yeah, probably the authorities it upset because they obviously wanted to get me nailed over here. Of course, all my investors, or most of my investors, and people that knew me, and even most of my family, apart from probably Cedric, were absolutely overjoyed, including Declan.
Yeah. So So you get you feel like relieved, and there was basically obviously in I did read up on this because you talk about double jeopardy before.
Yeah.
And I was saying that doesn't really exist in the UK no more. If there's capital crimes, for example, they will generally try to retry cases, but there's even lower cases. They've been doing it here in the UK now for a while. So then, how did you find out about the UK wanted to do their own case? Was it for similar charges?
Well, the whole everything was based here on what the Keir Starmer David Levy letter that was sent in February 2011. There was no Greek authorities. I had an investigation from the tax police in Greece. There was I hadn't committed broken any laws in Greece, and that came out at the trial. So everything has been instigated or sent by the CPS, West Yorkshire Police, and latterly Cedric and Declan.
Mm. I see that David Levy, because I've heard that name mentioned before, and he works for the SRA now.
Yes.
So, which is a solicitor's regulation authority.
Yeah, I think he's the head of the referees in Buckinghamshire, Hertford for rugby union. But I've had no problems with him. I've had communications with him in 2021 because he said he never, even though his signature was on it, he never had any reference of that letter whatsoever. And I think, his words was it must have bypassed him and gone straight to CPS York, where Andrew West was working from Starmer. And on the 7th of July 2021, David Levy actually went to see Andrew Penhale, who was head of the serious fraud organisation back then, and his sidekick, I think it was Peter Mann, who was the deputy, saying that this letter I know nothing about. I think it's been created fraudulently, and they've used my signature at the end of it. But Penhale just said that he thought everything was above board and refused to investigate it. But bear in mind, Penhale and Andrew West, who work at Petty France now, and a good few others, have all come from Yorkshire and Humberside CPS. So they've all been involved in Operation Langan or investigating Cedric since 2008.
Yeah, so there's a theme there. Now,
yeah.
So let's start the process for the UK now. Let's try and unpack that, how that all started.
Right. So I get acquitted here, and I have to. I want to get my businesses up and running. I didn't even go back home until I think it was about the 11th of December for my daughter's graduation at Bradford, because I was trying to resurrect the businesses. My ex-wife Jane was exonerated. She was represented by Dr. Sophis at the trial, so she didn't need to turn up. So she was in the UK whilst that happened, and the same with John Jessup. So I go back for my daughter's graduation and reunited with my wife, and was going to stay till Christmas and then come back over here for the 14th of January for a criminal trial against Michael Thompson for breaking into my villa on the 11th of September 2009 and stealing my hard drive and a bit of cash and some other things. And also to protect the company Veron AE at auction on the 15th of January 2014 to stop it being repossessed by the bank. Hopefully accompanied on the 15th of January at that auction with Charles Anakis, who's my architect here and good friend, Pat Brownette, who was a building director for Howard Tennant, and Matthew Clark, who was the brother of Benedict Clark that had put 500,000 into Veron UK floating on the plus market. All this went to the wall because I was remanded on the 9th of January 2014 by Andrew West with a pack of lies that he told Judge Thomas at Bradford Crown Court that the trial in Greece had collapsed, it didn't go ahead, there wasn't enough evidence, prosecution witnesses didn't turn up, and that now Ralph's brother Cedric has turned against him, realising that Ralph is a fraudster. You know, I've got the transcript of all that. So again, we're back to Andrew West and the CPS, not only telling all the lies to the Greeks in 2011, they're back at Bradford Crown Court, where I'm going to get convicted a year later, telling another pack of lies to get me remanded for 3 months.
Right. And you were remanded what? Because you were a flight risk?
No, I was remanded because apparently I'd been interfering with prosecution witnesses, Benedict Clark and Mario Churchioni. Both, as I said earlier, had been part of the Greek trial because my lawyer, Dr. Svemis, had spoken to them. Mario Churchioni couldn't be a defence witness here for the trial that Sue Watt and Stephen Thomas didn't turn up, causing the adjournment for 2 weeks because he was in America. But he was down to come to the trial on the 14th of October because he returned from America on the 11th of October. Lo and behold, a year later, suddenly Mario Churchioni is a prosecution witness in Bradford, faxing evidence that I was trying to make him go against, make him become a defence witness in the UK when, technically speaking, he already was because he was one in Greece. And I think he got blackmailed by D.I. Taylor because of some connections that he was involved in to go prosecution. So that's how I got remanded for those 3 months.
Witness and intimidation. Okay.
Yeah.
So you was there for 3 months, and the trial, what was it? What, a year later, did you say?
Yeah, I was remanded from I think 9th of January to about the 4th of April 2014. And this was based solely on the Benedict Clark 300,000 so-called theft from October 2009, which I got found not guilty for at trial in January 2015. So then I'm released on bail. I'm allowed to come back to Crete because I want to continue my work and my job and what have you. I knew Cedric and Declan had been to Crete to do some investigations. They were actually there whilst I was being released. Declan came back. I saw him before I came back to Crete. We celebrated my daughter's, well, I can't remember what age she was. I think she was about 23 at the time. We also had a family celebration. Cedric was invited, but he didn't come. Declan came, said, yes, we've been to Crete. There's nothing, we haven't found anything wrong that you've done, Dad. Been to the places. They're all speaking highly of you. There's no problem, blah, blah, blah. And Declan keeps this charade going right up until I'm jailed. As I say, I go back to Crete. Cedric, then I've got evidence now of Cedric meeting various people, probably Declan as well, like Pat Brownette in May 2014 in Halligate. Paul Walker, who was another prosecution witness, who would have been a defence witness, only admitted to me 2 weeks ago that Cedric went to his office to speak to him around that period. Dave Francis, a long-term friend of mine, unfortunately he's died now at quite a young age, was made prosecution witness. You know, I'd known him in the carpet trade as long as I'd known Simon Thomas, who was Stephen Thomas's brother, people that I'd done excellent business with over many decades in the UK. He became a prosecution witness. Alan Thompson became a prosecution witness, who, as I said earlier, Dr. Femi Sofo spoke to him before the Greek trial. And so it all started to turn around May, June, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, July 2014, my counts have jumped from the one Benedict Clark that I get found not guilty for to another 18 on top.
Right. And all these witnesses, are they all witnesses to property deals or just witnesses? What are they witnesses to?
Well, yeah, they're all people that have done business with me. In some cases for like 30 years in the UK and then maybe 5-6 years here. So yeah, there's no doubt. None of these people have got any issues with me, apart from now Cedric has started to lie to them in 2014. And being a police officer, people tend to believe the plea, even though he's my own brother. Well, it probably makes it more likely to believe him because he's my own brother.
It puts more weight. It puts more weight on it, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I've got here. I had my first consultation with my QC, as he was at the time, Chris Turani, in Leeds on the 28th of November 2014. Stephen Grattidge was there as well, who was another QC who'd been involved in the Greek trial and been here and helped me defend myself. The first meeting I had with my counsel together was, as I say, was in November 2014, and now there's like 19 charges rather than one. I've got a list of the now prosecution witnesses on that day for the first time, which is Benedict Clark. Simon Thomas has become a prosecution witness. Mario Cercioni, Paul Walker, Claire Taylor, who was the girlfriend of John Jessup back in the day, Pat Browner, who worked at Howard Tennant's, Julian Beecham, who works at Howard Tennant's. So all these people had been involved in the Greek trial defending me in most cases, and now they're all part of the trial that was going to be heard beginning of January 2015.
And what did your QC say about that? Is that they were originally defence witnesses? I mean, what position was his for on that? It's a very odd situation.
Yeah, well, when I met Chris Turani for the first time on that date I just said, he said, "Oh, this is the case I've been waiting for. I've been wanting to get into West Yorkshire Police, his economic crime unit, for years. This is perfect. Yeah, this is, we're gonna enjoy this, Ralph, and all the rest of it." And of course, Stephen Grattidge had been part of the trial over here, so to me it was just a no-brainer. It was just going to start, and there'd be no convictions, and that would be the end of it. And ITN, as I said, came over here with Tayab Ali in March 2013 at the cost of legal aid. Stephen Grattidge was there. They had a junior solicitor with them, all paid for on legal aid. And then Miriam Shabam actually went over to Greece, to Athens, to see Dr. Sophis, and came to Crete beginning of January 2014, just a week before the trial, again on my legal aid. To get evidence. It's just going to be like a foregone conclusion that I wouldn't be convicted. But none of the evidence that was found in Greece by Tayab or Stephen Grattidge in 2013, or the evidence from Mariam Shabab beginning of January 2015 was ever used. For some bizarre reason, Chris Turani and Stephen Grattidge decided not to mention anything about the Greek trial, which is ludicrous. And also, Chris Turani admitted he'd seen a report by Cedric Christie that had been given to the CPS in April, I think the 21st of April 2014, that he said, it has no bearing on the trial whatsoever.
Did you have like a forensic accountant on your trial in your defence?
I didn't know. I did for the POCA, the proceeds of crime, to later date. It was all. I just thought it's just going to be a foregone conclusion. Like I said last week, Stephen Grattidge told me after 3 days. He says, "Well, what the prosecution witnesses have said, you're going to be acquitted. So don't use any of your defence witnesses now." So I'm ringing up people like Dave Campion.
I've heard that story before. Jeez,
yeah,
that just sends shudders.
Yeah, and then I've got a list here of the counts of the 19 counts, and then I've also got here from the prosecution the list of witnesses that they're going to use. So we've got on the 20th of January, the first two prosecution witnesses are Michael Thompson and Kimberly Thompson. Michael Thompson was facing criminal charges in Greece since September 2009 for breaking into my house and downloading my computer and actually handing it to West Yorkshire Police on the 21st of September 2009.
No way.
Yeah.
So potentially he did it on instruction of the police, potentially.
John Jessup's house was raided by DC Skidmore and DI Taylor, I think 8th or 9th of September 2009. And my house in Crete was broken into on the 11th of September 2009. Now, Michael Thompson is not a house burglar. You know, he's a respect, you know, I've had a good relationship with him. You know, he's been nutmegged and misled by all this, but he's not the sort of guy to go and break into somebody's house. But the only reason I think he was told to break into the house was because they wanted to get, he was running all the books and everything for the company we're on. And I think DC Skidmore and DI Taylor said, we've got to get something on Ralph Christie because we're, you know, and he says, well, I know all his computer, you'll have to go and get it. Well, not only did he break into my house, he knew where the company's cash was as well. Snaffled that, which was, I think it was 27,800 or 28,700, I can't remember. So, of course, I have to then, I was actually in the UK at the time. And when I ring up the police in Hatton and say, well, you have to come back and report it. You can't do it over the phone from the UK. So I fly back, put in a full criminal report. There was a witness here called Harry, which was one of my builders, that actually saw their red van parked out.
That was what I was going to ask you next. How did you know it was him?
Because the computer was logged on to, I mean, as far as I can remember, it said when the computer was logged on to, which was like 21:02 until 21:38 that evening. So you could tell that it had gone on. Somebody saw their red van parked outside. The front door had been broken into. And then the next morning, I think it was the guy who did our garden, he says, oh, somebody's broken into your house and and all the rest of it. So there's no doubt that this happened. And with John Jessup's house in Matlock in Derbyshire being raided the day before, there's a clear instruction from West Yorkshire Police. And I've actually got the signed docket where he has handed it to D.I. Taylor with his signature on. Doesn't say it's a computer, but he's handing over evidence for the trial. Now,
I mean, that would be, I mean, even under like PACE, for example, is that even admissible? Criminally obtained evidence. I mean, I bet the police excuse would be, thinking about it logically, he gave it they took it in good faith as he was the guy doing the bookkeeping or whatever. But if they knew it was illegally obtained via burglary, surely that's not admissible.
Of course, the police are telling him to rob a house to get evidence to use against me. Now, the trial was meant to have happened with. I mean, the trial with Michael Thompson was put back because bear in mind I was jailed for 8 months over here, so I couldn't attend. In fact, Dr. Fofi says you can go and attend in handcuffs if you want, and it won't look very good. So we waited for it. So the date was put to the 14th of January, 2014. Well, I'm remanded in the UK on the 9th of January, so I can't come back. Lo and behold, a year later, on the 20th of January 2015, Michael Thompson and his wife, Kimberly Thompson, the first two prosecution witnesses to go into the box. But they've got, and I'm telling Chris Tirani, well, how can he go in? He's got outstanding criminal charges to face in Greece. So he shouldn't be allowed to even go in the witness box.
What's the response to that?
Well, again, they just said we're not mentioning the Greek trial. It could open a can of worms. I mean, Chris Tirani actually said it to me 3 days into the trial, and I've got it in his notes. You were convicted of embezzlement in Greece, Ralph. I says I wasn't. He says you were. You were convicted. We don't want to bring it in. It's complete lies. That's my own cue.
Where did he get that information from?
I don't know. Well, probably, possibly. I don't know from Cedric or anybody could have lied. I mean, bear in mind that Andrew West had told the judge to get me remanded in Bradford that the trial had collapsed.
Yeah, but your QC shouldn't be listening to other people. He should be testing facts.
I don't know how much Chris Tirani's got to blame for this, but there's certainly collusion between Stephen Grattich and Cedric before the trial and even at the trial.
Now, going back to each of these witnesses, then the what were they witnesses to? What transactions or losing money or what?
Well, okay. Michael and Kimberly Thompson got a conviction of 5 years against me for embezzling 200,000 sterling off them from a deal I did with them in 2008. Well, 150,000 of it was repaid and evidenced at the court in Bradford. So really, it should have been 50,000 left to pay. But in May 2009, they moved into an apartment here that they bought off me, which was for 125,000. So everything was settled with them. This is May 2009. I know it's very difficult for people to keep up with, but come June 2009, Sue Watt and Stephen Thomas have told Michael and Kimberly Thompson that I've ripped off Stephen Thomas for 1.2 million. So they all of a sudden want to leave their apartment in Crete and don't have anything more to do with me, even though I hadn't committed a crime against them.
Mm. So did you say you were prosecuted for embezzlement? Did you say you were?
No.
Oh, right. Okay.
No. I was prosecuted for it in both countries, yeah, but I got not guilty. I was prosecuted for money laundering in both countries and found not guilty. I was prosecuted for fraud in both countries, and found guilty.
So you were charged and it was dismissed. Okay, gotcha. All right, yeah, you made it sound like you got prosecuted and you did a side deal or whatever.
No, totally acquitted of all crimes against the Republic of Greece and against Stephen Thomas. And
so did they abandoned their apartment, did they? They didn't want it anymore.
Yeah, they abandoned the apartment the day after they'd done the break-in to my house and drove back in their red van which takes, I don't know, you can do it in 5 days or you can do it in 4 days if you want, but it might have taken them 7 days, but there was 10 days between the break-in and them going to Dudley Hill Police Station to give the evidence to D.I. Taylor and D.C. Skidmore.
So did they own that apartment then?
Yeah.
And what did they do? Sell it or something? Or?
No. They made out that they never bought it in the first place, and I think they made out I'd rented it or something like that. But the people that lived next to them, like Roger and Carol Barnes and Barbara Berrett, and unfortunately Ron Berrett's dead now, that all knew that they'd moved into it and had bought it off me. But because Stephen Thomas had convinced them I'm a criminal, they thought, we've got to get out of Crete and all the rest of it. We don't like the sounds of all this. So by the 10th of September, they decided to leave, break into my house, and then they left the next day and drove back to the UK in the red van.
How does the land registry situation work then? Surely they'd have a title or something, would they?
Originally, I met them at a property show in Bradford. That's how I actually met them, let's say early 2007, when I was there with Stephen Thomas selling properties and what have you, because that's what our job was. So they originally wanted a nice villa built and, something maybe for 350,000. And they came over to live full time, let's say middle of 2008, and stayed here. And they were renting properties. Well, it became a bit much renting properties. They hadn't found the plot of land they wanted to build. So I said, rather than wait for to find the land you want to build in, why don't you buy this apartment off me for what I think it was 125 sterling or something like that, okay? And then when we find your land, I'll buy it back off you and we'll put it towards the villa. But everything was above board, and this is what they went along with doing. And then, of course, then they got spooked by Stephen Thomas. They just wanted to leave, and so there was no handover of deeds because we'd have had to pay the tax then of, I think it was 21% at that time. If they'd have handed over, we'd have had to pay 21% tax to put it into their name on 125 grand. And then if I bought it back off them, I'd have to pay the 21% again to put it back into my name.
Right. So was that some sort of like side document or anything like that? To show
there was side document. I mean, there was agreements that were signed when they did their investment originally of 200,000 sterling. I was quite happy to sign it. There was no problem with that because, like anybody who wanted agreements, I'd sign them. This is why I got guilty in Greece and what have you. But bear in mind that these two were the first two people to go in the witness box.
Yeah,
they made profit out of me because the value of the apartment and the 150,000 they had back was a lot more than what they'd ever given me in the first place.
But technically, though, they were never on the title. Did they get paid out from that property then?
Well, they walked away from the property. And at Pocker, I suggested they came and reclaimed it. But of course, all these shenanigans that have gone on at Bradford Crown Court, everybody was in too deep with lies, and there was no rescue really. And bear in mind, they got a 5-year conviction against me for this.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So they said their bit, and did they actually say a figure that they believe they were defrauded or out of? Or
Well, I got convicted of taking 200,000 sterling off them, which was the original loan, but they admitted under oath themselves that they had 150,000 back, so it should have been a 50,000 sterling.
that's where the 50,000 comes from.
Yeah,
Right.
but they're still charged me. Got convicted for the full 200.
Yeah. But at no point did you intend to deprive them of the 50,000.
No, of course not. No, I wouldn't deprive anybody of any money that they'd given me.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to see what was. Yeah. So they made money.
And then that property now, what's the state in that situation with that property?
Well, I gave it to Cedric for collateral at one point in 2013 when he was helping me. I said, well, because he was helping me finance clearing my name, because he helped me pay some taxes on Veron to keep that afloat. He paid some legal fees. He supported my wife because obviously I couldn't because of the financial strait we're in. So he helped me to the tune of about 130,000 sterling. So in 2013, when I was in prison, he was actually living there for that time because he had nowhere to live, which I wasn't bothered about. So I said, well, you take the apartment, and then at the end of it, if we sell it, I'll repay you with that money. Well, in the end, he didn't take the apartment, or it didn't happen. So the money that I had in Switzerland was always earmarked for him, which was repaid to him in January 2017, again via Pocker. So in answer to your question now, the apartment since I've come back, I've just sold it on again.
But what's interesting about that, right? At the same time that Cedric's lending you money to help your defence and other costs and the like, he then becomes a witness against you.
Yeah. It all happened when I got acquitted here, when the case collapsed here. In fact, the morning of the trial, I'm still in handcuffs at the front, and he kind of comes in and accuses me. He says, I've been paying for you in prison. I've been giving you money to your kids and your wife, and you're meant to be destitute. But I hear that you've been collecting rents while you're in prison. I've heard that a guy called Harris threatened my son. All this. And I'm just astounded at this, sat waiting for this trial. All the family are there. Where he's virtually shouting in my ear. I'm at the front of the court in handcuffs. So for some reason, that day, he did not want me to get acquitted. And he do bear in mind, he was going to be called as a witness as well. So I don't know what he would have said if he'd have been called as a defence witness. But he'd made up his mind then that he had to try and get me kept in prison unless he was going to be exposed.
Yeah, I mean, you try and work out that chronology. That's pretty epic. That is, how much toing and throwing and all the embeddedness between you all.
Yeah.
A bizarre situation.
Well, he accused me and says, you haven't got any money. You don't even have a Swiss bank account, do you, Ralph? You've been lying about that. I said, of course I've got it, and what have you. And he knew, after the trial, he shot off home. He didn't speak to his other two brothers that were staying there. They were there with their wives. Everybody was overjoyed. I had to spend one extra night in prison because of the paperwork. And I'm expecting Cedric to be there the next day and with my other brothers and their wives and have a bit of a celebration. And where's Cedric? No, he's shot off home. He's gone. And it obviously then, I know he had a big altercation with Declan over something that my ex-wife Jane told me about on the 7th of October. Don't know what that was about. But for me getting acquitted here, he was just out to get me for some reason. Well, probably to protect all his criminality that he's now admitted doing.
Yeah, I mean, you were basically saying that basically the police were covering for each other, and it's a massive web. That's your position. There's a perfect word for this. This is completely discombobulated. And it's hard to try and, you know, a good QC would, and a good team would put together that one picture, that one scenario, Cedric scenario, just that, you
Yeah.
know, a chronology from start to finish and task on that because he's clearly not a credible witness. And also, he was for defense over here. Now he's flipped to prosecution. And there's all these sort of transactions and different motivations in between all that. It doesn't make for a credible witness by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, his only credibility is that he was a senior police officer. That's it by that point, I'd imagine. I mean, that only holds certain weight. And also, secondly, I guess that why would he go against his own brother? I mean, that's probably the biggest element. You know, why would he do it? Is he doing it for fun? You know,
Why would my son go against his father? I mean, it's you know,
yeah.
yeah.
Let's move on to the next witness. We haven't got a lot of time, but we're just any pertinent ones. We've got about another 5 minutes for today's show.
Yeah. Okay. Well, another witness I've met is obviously Alan Thompson came in and gave evidence. He was going to unused defence witness here, making out that I'd forged some document for some land I bought off him for 570,000. Well, the police, I think, paid for him to come over, and he gave his statement in the witness box. But you know, within 15 minutes, my QC, Christie, worked out he was lying because we had evidence of contracts and concepts of Crete that Alan Thompson had actually done. So he actually admitted lying in the witness box and just walked out.
What, he got released from court just like that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He put his hands in the air. He says, "Yes, you've got me there."
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. And the judge just let him go. Just said, "Okay, yeah."
Yeah, he just walked out. Went, yeah, and he'd been flown in from Crete just to give evidence.
I mean, this makes the courtroom look like a bit of a circus. I mean, normally in that sort of situation, the judge would have a right to go at the witness and also the prosecution.
Yeah, yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And then
who's your next amazing witness?
Well, Pat Brownette, who was the director of Howard Tennant, who had retired, I think, in 2013, and was a defence witness here, he helped expose Thomas as a business partner over here, which was something he was always denying. He came in and said that the €1 million loan that Howard Tennant had given me in February 2009 was solely to be used for one project, which was called Zakros. Now, that's complete nonsense in itself, because we had meetings in March 2009 where 400,000 of their money had gone into another site called Ballet, and they still had 400,000 at that point in Zakros, and Stephen Thomas had 250,000 back to buy him out of the company. So to this day, I don't know why Pat Brownette even entertained Cedric, let alone become a prosecution witness, because I'd settled everything of the 1 million with his CEO, Peter Morris, in January 2010, which was the same land that Benedict Clark was meant to have that the police said he couldn't have. So that's another amazing state of affairs. Prosecution witness.
How long are these witnesses generally on the stand for?
Well, Pat Brownette was on for about 4 hours. His financial director, Julian Beecham, was on for about 10 minutes. Michael Thompson was on for probably, very difficult to say, I'm dead right on the time, but let's say he was on for about 3 hours. And then what's meant to happen when you have a husband and wife team is they're meant to be on the witness stand the same day. Because they're going home to talk together, sleep together and all the rest of it, because they're married.
Oh, yeah, good point. Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah.
But all of a sudden, there isn't enough time to see Kimberly Thompson on the same day because her husband had gone home. Oh, we'll deal with her tomorrow.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, because normally when you've got witnesses, like multiple, the witnesses are not allowed in the same court as other people giving witness statements. So they don't get to hear it. But perfect opportunity to confide in one another. And it's pretty obvious that the bedroom talk that evening is going to be about what
it's illegal. It's illegal. It shouldn't have happened.
And what did
You know?
your QC or
They stuff like that they just palmed off as just say, you know, there was many things. I mean, I used to have quite big fights with Chris Tirani about it, and you know, I mean, I don't usually swear a lot, but he used to say, "Look, shut the fuck up, will you, Ralph, about this all the time? You know, we'll deal with this, you know." And I'm saying, okay, we're going through everything like we do at the end of the day, and you know, I'm saying, well, how can Michael Thompson be giving evidence? There's a criminal case against him in Greece. There's no evidence about that, Ralph. You say, I've got the papers from the Greek police station in front of him.
yeah, that's the other thing. Just think, going back to that witness, you're talking about the couple, is surely one of them ought to have been struck from giving a witness statement. Because that prejudices your case. Now, Ralph, unfortunately, we're out of time for this week's episode.
Okay.
We will come back for another episode. Do you want to introduce your final song for this week?
Yes, I do. It's a Greek song. It's in Greek. My Greek's not very good, but basically it's called Portalafello, which means how much I want you. And I'm dedicating this to Gita, who's my partner now. It's a song that we've enjoyed and we've played it over the years. It actually, just to give you a little bit of some of the words in it, it just says, how much I want you, the moon looks like you, where to find some peace, I dawn over Hades, how much I want to be with you. So this is to Gita.
Fantastic.
Portalafello.
Hey, Gita. Great stuff. All right, brilliant.
Thank you for listening to our guest stories this week.
Dream Catcher Radio. Dream Catcher Radio.
Dreamcatcher Radio is about capturing and creating dreams through music, chat, and debate. Empowering expression, enriching society. A go-to place for unsigned musical talent. A radio station which listens to its audience. Free speech, vibrant, engaging. Stream worldwide 24/7. Events, competitions, promotions. Always keen to have a listening ear. Contact us. hello@dreamcatcherradio.com.
Dreamcatcher Radio.
Του απείρου, στιγμούλα των ήρου. Σταγόνα που στάζει, πόσο σου μοιάζει. Φωτιά και αέρα, στον κόσμο φοβέρα. Στη νύχτα κουρνιάζει, πως σε τρομάζει. Σελήνη που να βρω γαλήνη, στον άδεια να τέλω, πόσο σε θέλω. Κόντρα στους νόμους, ερήμου προφήτης, σημάδια στην άμμο που απόψε θα σβήσει. Άσπρο μαύρο μέλλον, σκυφτός μετανάστης. Σταθμός στο ραδιόφωνο που πρέπει να αλλάξεις. σελήνη, που να βρω γαλήνη, στον άδεια να θέλω. Πόσο σε θέλω, πόσο σε θέλω, πόσο σε θέλω, πόσο σε θέλω. Πόσο σε θέλω, πόσο σε θέλω, πόσο σε θέλω.
Say